in the small coastal village of Lamu, where the turquoise waves kissed the white sands and the scent of salt and spices filled the air, young Amina ran barefoot along the shoreline, her kittens fluttering in the gentle breeze. Her dark eyes sparkled with curiosity as she watched the fishermen hauling nets heavy with silver fish, their hands moving skillfully despite the sun's relentless glare. The village, with its coral stone houses and intricately carved wooden doors, seemed quiet that morning, yet a strange hush lingered, almost as if the wind itself carried a secret. Amina's grandmother, Mama Nia, had warned her many times about wandering too close to the old baobab tree at the edge of the village, where shadows seemed to twist unnaturally and whispers could sometimes be heard when the night fell. Today, drawn by a strange pull she could not name, Amina found herself nearing the massive trunk, its roots spreading wide like the fingers of a giant. She noticed carvings on the bark, symbols that pulsed faintly in the morning light, and a soft murmur that seemed like voices calling her name. Her heart raced, half with fear, half with excitement, and she stepped closer, not realizing that this small act would unravel mysteries that had long been buried beneath the sands and winds of Lamu. As she traced the carvings with her fingers, a sudden wind blew, scattering grains of sand and carrying with it a faint scent of smoke and something sweet, almost like honey. Amina froze, listening carefully, her mind filled with questions she had no answers for, as if the baobab itself held stories waiting to be told, stories of those who had come before her, stories that might change everything she knew about her village and her own family. Amina stepped back from the baobab, her heart pounding like a drum, but curiosity anchored her feet. The carvings seemed to shimmer faintly, as though the morning light had awakened them from a long sleep. She bent closer, her fingers brushing a mark that resembled a small spiral. Suddenly, a soft voice whispered through the leaves, so faint she almost thought it was her imagination. "Amina," it said, and her name seemed to hang in the humid air like a fragile thread. Startled, she spun around, but the beach remained empty except for the fishermen, their laughter echoing faintly from the shore. She wanted to run back home, to the safety of Mama Nia's courtyard, but something urged her forward. A narrow path of crushed sand led behind the baobab into the dense forest that bordered the village. The trees were taller here, their trunks wrapped in moss, roots twisting over one another as if guarding secrets hidden deep within. Birds cawed and flitted among the branches, their movements erratic, almost nervous, as though aware of her presence. Amina ventured deeper. She noticed the forest floor littered with colorful petals from unknown flowers, petals that smelled faintly of cinnamon and smoke. She paused, kneeling to inhale the scent, when suddenly a shadow passed overhead. She looked up to see a figure tall, cloaked in a faded dashiki, face hidden beneath a hood moving silently between the trees. A shiver ran down her spine. The figure stopped, and for a moment it felt as if time itself held its breath. Then, in a low voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, the figure spoke. "The baobab chooses who can hear its stories. You have been chosen, Amina." Her eyes widened. Chosen for what? The figure disappeared as silently as it had come, leaving only the faint scent of smoke lingering. Amina's mind raced, memories of her grandmother's tales flooding back. Mama Nia had spoken of spirits that protected the village, ancient guardians, who watched over those who respected the old ways. Could this be one of them? She continued cautiously along the forest path, her fingers grazing the rough bark of ancient trees, feeling the pulse of life that seemed to hum beneath the forest floor. Suddenly, a soft rustle drew her attention. From behind a thick curtain of vines, a small group of children emerged. They were dressed in tattered clothing, their eyes wide and alert, and they stared at her with a mixture of fear and recognition. You can hear it too," one whispered, a boy no older than 10, his voice trembling. Amina nodded, unsure what else to say. The children beckoned her forward, and she followed them through the twisting paths deeper into the forest. Shadows shifted strangely around them, and at times she thought she saw eyes glinting in the underbrush. The air grew cooler, and the faint smell of incense mixed with the earthy scent of wet leaves. Eventually, they arrived at a clearing where the sunlight broke through in golden streaks, illuminating a circle of stones covered in moss and carved with symbols similar to the ones on the baobab. The children knelt at the stones, chanting softly, their voices rising and falling like the tides. Amina felt a strange warmth in her chest, as if the energy from the stones flowed into her, linking her to something much larger than the small village she had known all her life. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The oldest child, a girl with braided hair tied with red and yellow beads, looked at her solemnly. "This is the heart of the baobab," she said, "the place where the stories of our ancestors live. Only those who are chosen may enter, and only those who are brave may hear the truth." Amina swallowed hard, feeling both fear and exhilaration. She took a deep breath and knelt beside them, placing her hands on the cold, damp stones. Immediately, visions flashed before her eyes, images of her ancestors walking the forests, fishing the coast, and guarding the village against unseen threats. She saw wars fought long ago, storms that had destroyed homes, and mysterious figures who appeared and vanished without a trace. Each vision left her heart racing, and a voice within whispered, "You are part of this now. You must learn, you must protect." The wind shifted suddenly, rustling the leaves overhead, carrying with it the distant sound of drums. Amina's eyes widened. She could hear faint singing as well, voices rising and falling in an ancient rhythm that seemed to resonate in her bones. The children rose and motioned for her to follow them, deeper into the forest. Every step seemed to thrum with hidden energy, and she felt the presence of something watching them from the shadows, something both protective and wary. As they moved forward, she realized that the Baobab had not only chosen her but had opened a door to secrets that could change everything she had ever known. Amina followed the children cautiously, their small hands weaving through the dense undergrowth, leading her to a part of the forest she had never imagined existed. Here, the trees grew closer together, their branches forming a natural arch that filtered the sunlight into scattered golden beams. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth, wildflowers, and something sweeter, almost like vanilla mixed with smoke. The chanting from the stone circle faded behind them, replaced by the soft hum of insects and the distant sound of rushing water. The forest felt alive in a way that made her pulse quicken. Each rustle of leaves seemed like a whisper, each shadow a movement of something unseen. Her kitten brushed against the ferns as she walked, and she noticed tiny, iridescent insects fluttering around, casting tiny reflections in the filtered sunlight. As they moved forward, the children finally stopped at a clearing dominated by a small waterfall that spilled into a crystal-clear pool. The water shimmered, reflecting the light in mesmerizing patterns, and the sound of its gentle cascade seemed almost like a song. At the edge of the pool, an elderly man sat cross-legged on a flat stone, his kanzu flowing around him, a long staff resting across his knees. His hair was silver, braided in intricate patterns, and his eyes held a calm, piercing intelligence that seemed to see right through Amina. "You have come," he said, his voice deep and steady, yet carrying a subtle warmth. The children bowed their heads respectfully, and Amina felt an instinctive urge to do the same. "I am Baba Mosi," he continued. "The Baobab has called you, and the forest has accepted you. But to understand the truth, you must first face what lies hidden within." Amina's heartbeat quickened. What must I do?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Baba Mosi smiled faintly, tapping his staff against the stone. "You must enter the water. Only then will the stories reveal themselves. But where the visions you see may not all be kind. The past is filled with both light and shadow." She swallowed hard, staring at the pool. The water was clear, yet it shimmered with a strange, almost otherworldly glow. She could see vague shapes moving beneath the surface, and as she peered closer, the shapes seemed to take form, glimpses of ancestors, figures in traditional attire, faces she did not recognize, yet somehow felt familiar. The wind shifted, carrying the soft echo of whispers, repeating her name over and over. Taking a deep breath, Amina stepped forward, feeling the cool water lap against her bare feet. As she moved deeper, the water rose to her knees and then to her waist, sending tiny ripples across the surface. The first vision struck suddenly. She saw the village centuries ago, the huts made of straw and clay, villagers fishing and tending fires. Then, a shadow swept across the scene, a dark figure with eyes like burning coals, moving silently through the village, bringing fear wherever it went. Amina gasped, stumbling back slightly, and the water rippled violently around her, reflecting images that moved and shifted like living paintings. She saw a young girl, much like herself, standing alone under the baobab, surrounded by glowing symbols, being watched by unseen forces. The scene shifted again, showing a battle fought long ago. Villagers defending their homes against invaders with spears and shields, fire and smoke curling into the sky. Each vision left her breathless, yet she felt an undeniable pull, a need to understand and remember. Suddenly, the water's surface calmed and a soft light rose from the pool, forming a figure before her, a woman in flowing kanga, her face serene, yet lined with sorrow. "Amina," the figure said, voice like wind through leaves, "you have been chosen to guard our stories. Many have forgotten, many have ignored, but you must carry our truth forward." Amina's eyes filled with tears. "Me? I'm just a girl from the village. How can I do this?" The figure's gaze softened but remained firm. "It is not by strength alone that you will succeed, but by heart and courage. Listen to the whispers, trust the signs, and remember the baobab sees all." The light faded, leaving Amina shivering in the cool water, the vision slowly dissolving into ripples. She knew that her life had changed forever. The forest, the baobab, The voices they had chosen her for a purpose she had yet to fully understand, and the journey ahead would test her in ways she could not yet imagine. Amina stepped out of the pool, water dripping from her kittened hair, her heart still racing from the visions. The forest around her seemed quieter now, yet the air vibrated with an unseen energy, as though every leaf, every stone, and every shadow were aware of her presence. Baba Mosi rose slowly from his stone seat, the folds of his kanzu moving gracefully, and gestured for her to follow him deeper into the clearing. The children had returned to kneel beside the stone circle, their eyes wide with anticipation. "You have seen the past," Baba Mosi said softly, "but the future is uncertain. What you do with these stories will shape not only your life but the lives of all who walk this land." Amina nodded, feeling a weight settle onto her shoulders, heavy but strangely comforting. Like the first hint of responsibility woven with purpose, the eldest child, the girl with braided hair and beads, stepped forward and handed Amina a small pouch made of woven reeds. "This has been kept for you," she whispered. "It contains seeds from the baobab. Plant them wisely. They carry the memory of our ancestors." Amina took the pouch, fingers trembling, and felt an odd warmth radiate from it. She glanced around, noticing the forest now seemed even more alive. Small animals peeking curiously from behind trees, birds fluttering with more vibrant colors than she had ever seen. The forest whispered again, soft words she could almost understand, urging her to remember, to protect, to learn. "You must leave soon," Baba Mosi continued. "The baobab has chosen you, but the village does not yet know the truths you carry. Be cautious. There are those who would seek to silence the whispers, who fear what knowledge can do." Amina's stomach nodded with unease. She had never considered danger in her quiet village of Lamu, yet now she realized that mysteries often came with hidden threats. As they prepared to return to the edge of the forest, a sudden rustling erupted from deeper within the trees. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and a cold wind swept through the clearing. A dark figure, taller than any man she had seen, emerged slowly, its eyes glowing faintly like embers. The children gasped and retreated, but Amina felt an inexplicable pull, a mix of fear and courage that rooted her to the spot. The figure's voice, deep and hollow, echoed through the clearing. "So, she has come, the chosen one walks among us." Baba Mosi stepped forward, staff in hand, and spoke with authority. "You cannot harm her. She is protected by the baobab, as all chosen are." The figure paused, studying Amina intently. "The baobab protects, for now. But every choice has a consequence, child. Do you understand what you are stepping into?" Amina swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the forest, the baobab, and her ancestors pressing in around her. I will do what I must," she whispered, voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. The figure receded, melting into the shadows between the trees, leaving only the whisper of wind and the faint smell of smoke. Amina exhaled slowly, trying to calm the rapid beat of her heart. Baba Mosi placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes softening. "The path ahead is yours to walk," he said. "The forest has shown you what was hidden. Remember, the baobab sees all, and it will guide you when the world seems uncertain. But the real journey begins when you step back into the village, where choices will test your courage and your heart." The children formed a small procession behind her as she left the clearing, the sunlight filtering through the dense canopy like golden fingers pointing the way home. Every step back to the village felt heavier, yet filled with purpose. Amina realized that her life had shifted irreversibly, no longer just a child of Lamu, but a guardian of stories, of secrets, and of ancient truths that had waited centuries for someone brave enough to hear them. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, the familiar sound of the ocean greeted them, waves rolling lazily over the sand, oblivious to the ancient magic that had just revealed itself. Amina paused, looking back at the forest, feeling both awe and apprehension. She knew that the baobab had changed her forever, that whispers would follow her even in the quietest corners of her village, and that the balance between light and shadow rested in part on her young shoulders. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long golden streaks across the sand, and Amina realized that the day she had started running along the beach had become the first chapter of a story much larger than herself, one of courage, mystery, and the enduring voices of the ancestors, waiting to be heard once more. The sun had begun its slow descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of gold, orange, and soft pink as Amina emerged from the forest, her bare feet leaving small impressions in the warm sand. The familiar scent of salt and fish greeted her, but everything seemed slightly altered, as if the village itself was holding its breath, aware that something had shifted. Villagers moved about, some carrying baskets of fresh seafood, others tending small fires to cook the day's catch, and children ran along the shoreline, their laughter echoing faintly. Yet, to Amina, their movements felt distant, almost dreamlike, her mind still echoing with visions from the baobab, the glowing stones, and the mysterious figure that had watched her in the forest. Her fingers absently clutched the small pouch of baobab seeds, feeling the warmth of the tiny treasures as if they carried the heartbeat of the forest itself. As she walked toward her home, Amina noticed that the village, which she had known so well, appeared layered with subtle mysteries she had never seen before. The wooden doors of the coral stone houses were carved with intricate patterns, and the wind played over them, carrying faint whispers that made her shiver. Fishmongers called out their wares, but their voices seemed distant, and she caught herself hearing echoes of chanting, faint but unmistakable, as if the forest had followed her here. She remembered Baba Mosi's words, "The real journey begins." When she returned to the village, where choices would test her courage and heart, every step toward her family's courtyard carried a weight, a sense of responsibility she had not felt before, and her mind wandered to the question of what the future would demand from her. Her home appeared as it always had, a modest coral stone house with a thatched roof, but the familiar smells of cooking and incense seemed sharper, more poignant, carrying memories of her grandmother's stories and lessons. Mama Nia sat near the small fire pit, rolling dough for chapati, her hands skillful and rhythmic. She looked up as Amina entered, her eyes narrowing slightly. A mixture of concern and curiosity etched across her face. "Amina," Mama Nia said, her voice calm but firm, "you've been gone longer than usual. Where have you been, child?" Amina hesitated, sensing the gravity of what she had experienced. Could she tell her grandmother about the Baobab, the forest clearing, Baba Mosi, and the visions? She knew that some truths were not easily spoken, yet the urgency in her chest demanded she find a way. I went to the forest, Grandma," she said carefully, placing the pouch on the table. I saw things. I was chosen, Mama." Nia's eyes widened slightly, and she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The Baobab has chosen you, Amina. I've hoped, but never imagined so soon. You must be careful. Child, there are eyes that watch, both seen and unseen." Amina felt a chill run through her spine. "Eyes? What do you mean?" she asked, her curiosity mixed with unease. Mama Nia motioned for her to sit, then spoke softly of old tales. Stories passed down for generations. She told Amina about the guardians of the village, spirits who protected the people but also tested them, and of those who had sought the baobabs. Secrets for selfish reasons, bringing misfortune upon themselves and others. As the sunlight faded, shadows crept across the courtyard, flickering against the walls as if firelight danced. "You are now part of this, Amina," Mama Nia said, placing a gentle hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. "What you saw is only the beginning. The forest, the baobab, the visions, they are guiding you. But remember, not all who seem friendly will be so, and not all who whisper truth speak in kindness. Watch carefully, listen wisely, and trust your heart." The night settled over the village, the sky darkening into deep indigo, stars twinkling faintly above. Amina sat quietly by the fire, the pouch of seeds resting in her lap. Her mind replayed the visions of ancestors, battles, and the mysterious cloaked figure from the forest. She realized that her ordinary life, once filled with sand, sea, and simple routines, had transformed into a path of responsibility and mystery. Each shadow in the courtyard, each distant sound from the nearby ocean, seemed charged with meaning. She looked at Mama Nia, who stirred the fire slowly, humming an old tune that seemed to resonate with the whispers still echoing in Amina's mind. The girl understood then that sleep would not come easily tonight. Her dreams would carry fragments of the baobab's secrets, urging her to prepare for the challenges that awaited at dawn. With a deep breath, she resolved to remain vigilant, knowing that the journey ahead demanded courage, wisdom, and a heart attuned to the unseen rhythms of the world she had just begun to understand. The night grew deeper, and the sounds of the ocean waves mingled with the occasional cry of distant animals. Amina could not sleep, her mind alive with the whispers from the forest and the visions she had witnessed in the baobab pool. Every shadow in her room seemed to shift subtly, and the faint rustle of leaves outside her window felt like the forest itself calling to her. She held the pouch of baobab seeds tightly, feeling their warmth, a constant reminder that she had been chosen for something greater than her everyday life. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind, "Not all who whisper truth speak in kindness." Amina knew she would have to learn to discern which voices to trust. The following morning, the village seemed almost unchanged, yet a tension lingered beneath the surface. Fishermen spoke in hushed tones about unusual movements of the tides, the sudden appearance of strange fish along the shore, and shadows that seemed to pass over the sand without explanation. Children spoke of hearing faint singing in the wind, voices that carried no identifiable source. Amina walked among them, sensing that the forest's magic had not remained behind the trees. Even the sunlight seemed to cast sharper shadows, turning familiar pathways into mysterious corridors of light and dark. She felt eyes watching her, though she could not see from whom or what. Her heart tightened each time a shadow shifted near her, each rustle of leaves causing a shiver to run down her spine. By mid-morning, a commotion arose near the village center. A group of villagers had gathered, murmuring anxiously around an overturned cart. The goods it carried scattered across the dusty road. Amina pushed through the crowd and saw that it was not just misfortune that had struck. The fish and vegetables had been torn apart, as though by some invisible force. The elders whispered among themselves, recalling tales of spirits angered or lost wandering too close to human dwellings. Amina's stomach clenched. She had learned from the Baobab and Baba Mosi that the forest's energies were delicate, and human ignorance could stir forces that were best left undisturbed. She glanced at the pouch of seeds and the small, glowing memories it carried, wondering if the disturbances were a test, a warning, or something darker. As she pondered, a boy from the village ran toward her, breathless and wide-eyed. Amina! Amina! He cried, tugging at her kitenge. There's something in the market square, something moving, but no one can see it properly. It's like shadows with eyes. Amina's pulse quickened. She nodded to him, motioning for him to stay behind, and moved cautiously toward the square. The air seemed heavier here, tinged with the scent of smoke and something faintly sweet. The market, normally bustling, was eerily quiet, stalls abandoned, fruit and vegetables untouched, except for scattered patches disturbed as if something had passed through. She felt a tingling along her arms and legs, an invisible current guiding her, pulling her closer to the center of the square. Then she saw it, a faint, shimmering shape, like smoke taking form, drifting among the stalls. It had eyes, small but glowing faintly red, and moved with deliberate intent. Almost as though aware of her presence, Amina took a deep breath, recalling Baba Mosi's warning that courage and heart would guide her through these challenges. She stepped forward, holding out her hand as if to reach toward the shimmering figure, her voice soft but clear. I am Amina. Show me what you are. I will not harm you. The figure paused, hovering, then shifted, revealing not a monster, but a small, ethereal child. Translucent and shimmering, its face solemn. You can see us, it whispered, voice echoing faintly like wind through leaves. If you can, you are chosen. Amina nodded, realizing that the disturbances in the village were connected to the unseen spirits, perhaps testing her, perhaps warning her, or seeking guidance. She had to learn quickly, for the balance between the forest, the Baobab, and the village was fragile, and the shadows had begun to stir with intentions that were not yet clear. Amina stood frozen in the deserted market square, her heart thumping loudly. Yet a strange calm settled over her as she stared at the shimmering, ethereal child hovering before her. Its eyes glowed faintly, red like embers, yet not threatening, more like tiny warnings that demanded attention. The girl's hand still reached forward, the pouch of baobab seeds tucked safely against her chest, its warmth radiating reassurance. Around her, the village seemed suspended in time, the usual chatter and footsteps muted as though the unseen spirits had held the day in a delicate balance, waiting to see what she would do. She whispered softly, I want to understand, show me what you need. The figure tilted its head, its gaze lingering on her with a mixture of sorrow and hope, and slowly, it began to move, leading her toward the edge of the square, where the shadows gathered thickly, curling like smoke from an unseen fire. The closer Amina followed, the denser the air became, carrying the scent of damp earth mixed with faint smoke and a sweetness she could not name. The shadows twisted and formed shapes that resembled animals, people, and objects from stories she had only heard in whispers. Foxes with glowing eyes, ancestors carrying baskets, fishermen casting nets across invisible waters. The village around her faded, replaced by a vision layered over reality, the spirit's world intertwined with her own. She realized that the disturbances she had seen in the market were not random. They were attempts by the spirits to communicate, to warn the villagers, and perhaps to test her resolve. The pouch of seeds pulsed in her hands, as if affirming that the knowledge she carried was part of this delicate balance. Then, without warning, a new presence emerged from the thick shadows, larger, darker, more menacing than the ethereal child. Its shape was vaguely humanoid, but the edges blurred and shimmered like smoke caught in sunlight, eyes burning brighter than the first figure. Amina froze, feeling a shiver crawl down her spine. The child's spirit stepped in front of her protectively, its small form glowing more brightly as it spoke. Do not fear, it whispered. It tests you. Only the chosen can face it and survive. Amina drew in a deep breath, recalling Baba Mosi's teachings, courage and heart, trust in the unseen, and the responsibility she bore as one chosen by the Baobab. She lifted her chin, steadying herself against the fear that surged in her chest, and focused on the glowing seeds in the pouch. As a dark figure approached, the shadows thickened, swirling around the market square, yet the small pulse of light from the baobab seeds seemed to repel the darkness, creating a small sanctuary around her. Amina whispered a prayer she had never spoken aloud. Words of protection and guidance learned from Mama Nia. And for a brief moment, the darkness hesitated. The ethereal child drifted closer, its tiny hands glowing with soft light that merged with the warmth of the seas. Forming a protective barrier around Amina, the dark figure paused, its embers-like eyes steadying her, and a low, hollow voice echoed through the square. So, the chosen one stands, she holds the balance. Yet she knows not the cost. The figure's shape quivered, shifting unnaturally, and then it retreated slowly, melting into the shadows, leaving the square eerily silent once more. Amina exhaled, her body trembling from the encounter, yet a surge of determination filled her chest. She realized that the spirits were not merely visions or warnings, they were guardians, testing her readiness to carry the Baobab's legacy, to understand the delicate threads that wove together the forest, the village, and the unseen world. Around her, the market returned to normal, villagers cautiously emerging, unaware of the otherworldly events that had unfolded in their midst. Amina looked down at the patch of seeds and knew that her journey had only begun. Each vision, each test, each whisper from the Baobab and the forest would demand courage, wisdom, and an unwavering heart. And as the first stars began to appear in the night sky above Lamu, she made a silent promise to protect the village, honor the ancestors, and face whatever shadows dared to challenge her. For the balance of her world now rested in her hands. The village had returned to its ordinary rhythm, yet Amina could feel the lingering presence of the unseen world, pressing just beyond the edges of her vision. Even the familiar ocean waves seemed to carry a new weight, the rhythmic crash against the shore echoing faint whispers she could barely understand. She walked carefully through the streets, the glowing pouch of baobab seeds secured against her chest, aware that every movement, every choice, now held significance beyond her years. Villagers gave her curious glances, some suspicious, some admiring, but none could perceive the invisible threads linking her to the forest and its spirits. She had been chosen, and the weight of that choice settled heavily upon her shoulders, a mantle both frightening and empowering. That evening, Mama Nia called Amina to the courtyard, a solemn look on her face. "The Baobab has opened your eyes, Amina, and now the world sees you differently," she said. "There are those who will envy, those who will fear, and those who will try to manipulate the unseen for their gain. You must be vigilant." Amina nodded, gripping the pouch tightly. "I understand, Grandma. I've seen things today, shadows, spirits, and I think the village itself is part of it." Mama Nia's eyes softened but remained sharp. "Yes, child, but knowledge alone is not enough. You must learn patience, wisdom, and how to act when the forest calls. Tonight, the Baobab will guide you further." The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the village bathed in twilight. Amina stepped toward the edge of the beach, feeling the fine sand cool under her bare feet. She closed her eyes and listened to the ocean, the rustling palm trees, and the faint hum of unseen voices blending into a symphony of guidance. Then, without warning, the wind shifted, carrying a familiar scent of smoke and cinnamon, the same fragrance from the forest clearing. A soft voice whispered her name, gentle yet insistent. "Amina, follow." Her heart raced. She glanced toward the forest, shadows stretching like long fingers under the moonlight. Though fear gripped her chest, determination spurred her forward. Each step felt like a heartbeat, a drum of destiny, leading her to the threshold of the forest where the Baobab's ancient magic waited. As she entered the forest, the darkness wrapped around her like a velvet cloak, but the pouch pulsed softly, casting warm light against the moss-covered trunks and roots. Shapes flickered in the corners of her vision, small spirits moving between the trees, guiding her path. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared, the ethereal child, glowing faintly, hovering above a path lined with luminous flowers she had never seen before. The child pointed toward a massive tree in the distance, its trunk wider than any she had encountered, bark etched with glowing symbols and faintly shimmering under the moonlight. "The Baobab calls," the child whispered. "You must listen, for the next step will reveal truths the village cannot yet bear to see. But be warned, the shadow still lingers, watching, waiting. Courage alone will not suffice, your heart must lead." Amina approached the great Baobab, awe striking her breathless. Its carvings seemed to dance in the moonlight, glowing softly as though alive. She could hear faint whispers rising from its trunk, layered voices of ancestors, guardians, and spirits, weaving together a tapestry of the past and present. As she placed her hands against the cool bark, visions flared before her eyes, glimpses of the village centuries ago, of battles fought, storms weathered, and guardians protecting the land from forces that sought imbalance. Then, abruptly, the shadow appeared again, darker, more solid than before, with eyes like smoldering coals, circling the base of the tree. Amina's pulse quickened, but she remembered the child's words, "Heart must lead." Summoning every ounce of courage, she focused on the glowing pouch, channeling the warmth, The light and the ancestral energy coursing through her. The shadow recoiled slightly, and a low, echoing voice rumbled through the forest. The chosen holds the balance for now. But the path ahead is fraught with trials, one misstep, and the village and the forest will suffer. Amina's resolve hardened. She understood that the real journey had only just begun. The Baobab had not merely chosen her to witness its stories, it had entrusted her with guardianship, responsibility, and the courage to face threats both seen and unseen. The wind rustled through the leaves, carrying the voices of spirits and ancestors, wrapping her in a cocoon of guidance and purpose. As the first silver stars blinked in the clear night sky, Amina took a deep breath, letting the weight of destiny settle on her shoulders. The forest, the village, and the Baobab's ancient magic were now entwined with her life. She would face the coming days with courage, wisdom, and heart, knowing that every step she took would shape not only her story, but the legacy of generations long past and those yet to come. The morning sun stretched its first golden fingers across the village, casting long shadows on the coral stone walls and the sandy paths. Amina woke with a start, her dreams still tangled with the whispers of the forest and the glowing visions of the Baobab. Even the familiar smell of the ocean and the smoke of cooking fires felt charged with an unusual intensity, as if the events of the previous night had shifted the rhythm of the village. She rose carefully, brushing the sand from her feet and adjusted the kitten around her shoulders. The pouch of baobab seeds rested heavily against her chest, a constant reminder of the weight of her responsibility and the unseen forces she now carried with her. Each heartbeat seemed to echo with urgency, urging her to remain vigilant, yet to act with wisdom and care. Amina stepped outside into the village square. The market had returned to its normal bustle, yet beneath the surface, tension lingered. Villagers exchanged hushed conversations, eyes darting toward the forest's edge, speaking in a language half-whispered, half-gestured. A few children stared at her, wide-eyed, sensing something different in her presence, though they could not name it. The smell of fresh fish mixed with sun-warmed sand and spices carried through the air. She moved, cautiously, noticing the subtle changes. The shadows lingered a moment longer, a breeze seemed to shift unnaturally, and the sunlight glimmered oddly on the carved patterns of the huts. Each detail reminded her that the boundary between the visible world and the unseen had thinned, and she could feel the weight of her choices pressing upon her even before the day had fully begun. Mama Nia appeared suddenly, carrying a basket of food and herbs, her expression a mixture of concern and encouragement. "Amina," she said softly, "today you must learn to navigate both the village and the unseen. You will meet those who can help you and those who seek to challenge you. Remember what the Baobab has shown you, and trust your heart." Amina nodded, gripping the pouch. "I understand, Grandma. I feel their presence even now." Mama Nia placed a gentle hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. "Good. The forest watches, and so do we. But there is one among you who walks with intentions hidden. Keep your eyes open and your heart strong." As Amina moved toward the edge of the village, a sudden commotion caught her attention. A group of fishermen had gathered near the docks, pointing to something floating in the shallow water. Curiosity pulled her forward, and she saw what appeared to be a small wooden box, carved with intricate symbols that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. The box floated as if held by unseen hands, bobbing gently with the rhythm of the tide. The villagers murmured nervously, unsure whether to retrieve it, and fear flickered across their faces. Amina felt a chill run through her body. She knew this was no ordinary object. It carried a message, a test, or perhaps a warning from the unseen world she had begun to inhabit. Without hesitation, she waded into the shallow water, the cool waves brushing against her legs, and reached for the floating box. The moment her fingers closed around it, a strange warmth pulsed through her hands, and a faint glow illuminated the carved patterns, revealing symbols she recognized from her visions of the Baobab. Opening the box carefully, Amina discovered a small scroll, wrapped in delicate cloth with writing etched in an ancient script. The letters shimmered faintly, as though alive, and she felt a sudden presence behind her. Turning slowly, she saw the ethereal child spirit hovering near the edge of the dock. Its glow soft but insistent. "The time comes," a whispered voice carried on the gentle wind. "The shadow watches. You must understand what is hidden. For what lies ahead will test your courage more than before. Seek the truth, and the village will survive." Amina unrolled the scroll carefully, her eyes scanning the symbols and markings. Though she could not read them completely, fragments of knowledge from the Baobab's vision seemed to align with the script, forming a map of places, people, and events she would need to investigate. Each symbol pulsed faintly with energy, and she realized that the village's safety, the balance between the unseen and the living, depended on her ability to decipher and act upon what she now held in her hands. The villagers watched in silent curiosity, unaware of the significance of the moment. Amina folded the scroll carefully and slipped it into the pouch with the baobab seeds. She turned to the ethereal child, nodding solemnly. I understand. I will do what must be done. The spirit glowed more brightly for a moment, then drifted toward the forest, signaling her to follow when the time was right. Amina took a deep breath, feeling both fear and resolve, and glanced back toward the village. She knew that the path ahead would be filled with tests, secrets, and encounters with both allies and threats. Yet, for the first time, she felt the full measure of her purpose to protect the village, honor the ancestors, and walk the delicate line between the seen and the unseen, guided by courage, heart, and the ancient power of the baobab. The morning mist clung to the village as Amina slipped quietly through the narrow lanes, the pouch of baobab seeds and the mysterious scroll secured against her chest. The air was cool and heavy with the scent of the ocean, mixed with faint whiffs of burning wood from the early morning fires. She felt the pull of the forest behind the village, a subtle tug in her chest, urging her to follow the path revealed by the scroll. Each step carried the weight of responsibility, and yet, with every breath, a sense of purpose strengthened her resolve. Today, she would begin the journey the baobab had set before her, the first in a series of challenges designed to test courage, wisdom, and heart. Her first destination was the old well near the outskirts of the village, a place whispered about in the stories of elders as a meeting point for spirits and a site of long-forgotten rituals. The scroll had depicted a symbol resembling the well, intertwined with a pattern she had seen carved into the baobab. As she approached, the mist thickened, curling around her like ghostly fingers, and she sensed the presence of something watching, unseen but undeniably near. A faint rustle echoed from the reeds surrounding the well, and the hairs on her arms rose in anticipation. She knelt beside the stone edge, tracing the carvings etched into the rock, symbols of guardians, ancestors, and warnings from a time long past. Her fingers brushed against a faintly glowing mark, the light pulsing softly as though recognizing her touch. She exhaled slowly, feeling the warmth of the baobab seeds in her pouch, as if they were whispering encouragement to her. Suddenly, movement flickered in the corner of her vision. A shadow, darker than the surrounding mist, shifted unnaturally, approaching from the dense reeds. Amina's heart raced. Yet she steadied herself, recalling the lessons of courage Baba Mosi had taught her. I am Amina, she called softly, her voice carrying over the still morning. I am chosen. Show yourself, and I will not harm you. The shadow paused as though considering her words, then slowly began to coalesce into a humanoid shape, taller and more imposing than any villager, with eyes that glowed faintly like embers. A chill ran down her spine, but she did not retreat. Instead, she focused on the glowing pouch, the warmth radiating through her fingers and into her heart, a reminder of the protection and guidance of the Baobab. The shadow shifted closer, voice low and hollow, echoing through the mist. The chosen walks among the living, but knows not the trials ahead. The path is dangerous, and every choice carries weight. Will you face what you must, child? Amina inhaled deeply, steadying her resolve. I will, she said firmly. I will learn, and I will protect my village. I will honor what has been entrusted to me. The shadow seemed to steady her, and for a moment, she felt its gaze pierce her very soul, weighing her courage, her heart, and her intentions. Then, with a slow motion that sent ripples through the mist, it receded, leaving only the faint glow of embers behind. Amina exhaled, her body trembling from the encounter. Yet a spark of triumph ignited within her. She realized that the shadows were not merely threats, they were tests, and surviving them meant proving her readiness to carry the baobab's wisdom into the world of the living. She turned back to the well, where the mist began to clear slightly, revealing a small alcove beneath the stone arch. Inside, hidden under moss and roots, lay a tiny chest carved with the same symbols as a scroll. Her hands shook slightly as she lifted the lid, revealing a series of small amulets, each carved from bone and wood, etched with protective symbols. She understood instinctively that these were tools, gifts from the spirits, to aid her in the trials ahead. As she pocketed one of the amulets, the ethereal child spirit appeared, hovering near the reeds. The path widens now, it whispered, its voice soft yet insistent. The village will face threats from within and without. You must be ready to act, to guide, and to protect. But beware, the shadow watches still, and not all allies are as they seem. Amina nodded, her heart racing, knowing that the days ahead would demand every ounce of courage, wisdom, and intuition she could muster. With the amulet secured and the pouch of baobab seeds glowing softly, she rose from the well, ready to continue her journey into the deeper mysteries awaiting. Beyond the village's familiar paths, the sun had begun its slow climb in the sky, brushing the village with pale golden light that filtered through the palm fronds, creating shifting patterns on the sandy paths. Amina moved with purpose, clutching the pouch of baobab seeds and the scroll tucked safely against her chest. Her mind replayed the encounter at the well, the shadow, the glowing amulet, the ethereal child guiding her, and she understood that each step forward carried weight beyond what she had ever imagined. The village, for all its apparent calm, had become a threshold between the seen and unseen worlds, and her courage and vigilance would determine the safety of everyone she loved. She adjusted the folds of her kitenge, the vibrant colors a stark contrast to the subdued hues of the early morning mist, and followed the path indicated by the symbols on the scroll. The trail led her to a grove of ancient mangrove trees near the river that wound quietly beyond the village. The air was heavy with humidity and the scent of salt and wet earth, the roots of the trees rising like twisted fingers from the dark water. The scroll had depicted a similar landscape, a place where water and land intertwined and where messages from the spirits could be found in the movement of the reeds and ripples of the river. Amina paused at the water's edge, her reflection fragmented in the shifting currents. She could feel the presence of the unseen watching her, the pulse of the baobab seeds resonating in her hands, as though whispering encouragement and guidance. With careful steps, she waded into the shallow water, feeling the cool mud press against her feet, and the soft current tug gently at her legs. Suddenly, movement flickered beneath the water. Shadows shifted unnaturally, forming shapes that resembled small, aquatic creatures glowing faintly with a soft luminescence. They darted around her legs, curious and cautious, and she realized that the river itself was alive with messages from the unseen world. Her heart quickened, yet she did not retreat. She knelt beside a knot of mangrove roots, following the symbols carved into the scroll. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a small wooden figurine surfaced from the water, floating gently toward her. It was carved in the likeness of a guardian spirit, delicate and detailed, etched with symbols she recognized from both the baobab and the amulet. Amina reached for it carefully, feeling warmth and energy radiate from its surface, connecting her to the network of unseen forces that had long protected the village. As she held the figurine, a low rustle came from the trees behind her. A figure emerged, partially hidden among the mangrove roots, a tall villager, dressed in a kanzu, with a sharp gaze that seemed to pierce through both the visible and invisible. Amina, he said softly but firmly, you've gone further than I expected. The spirits have chosen you. Yes, but not all who serve the unseen do so with good intentions. Be wary. Amina's pulse quickened. She remembered Mama Nia's warning about those who might seek to manipulate the unseen world for their gain. Who are you? She asked, her voice steady despite the tension twisting in her stomach. The man's eyes softened slightly. Yet, remain cautious. I am Jabari, he said. I have walked this path before you, guided by the baobab. But the journey is perilous. You must decide whom to trust carefully, for a misstep could endanger the village and perhaps more than just the village. Shadows linger, and not all shadows are as they seem. The words chilled her, yet strengthened her resolve. She nodded, holding both the glowing amulet and the wooden figurine tightly. The river's water lapped gently at her knees, reflecting the morning light and the subtle glow of the objects in her hands. The ethereal child appeared silently beside her, hovering near the roots of the mangrove. Glowing faintly, the tests intensify, it whispered, and the choices you make now will echo for generations. Trust your heart, Amina. Courage alone is not enough. Wisdom, patience, and clarity are your shields. Amina exhaled, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders, yet also a quiet strength growing within her. She understood that the village, the forest, the river, and the spirits were all threads of a single tapestry, and she, chosen by the baobab, was now part of its weaving. With the figurine in one hand and the glowing pouch of seeds in the other, she rose from the water and moved deeper into the mangrove grove, following the path outlined by the scroll. The shadows of the trees stretched long and wavering, the mist curling around her legs, and the low murmur of the river echoed like a song of guidance. She felt the pull of destiny in every step, the unseen world pressing close, and the knowledge that her journey had entered a critical stage. Ahead lay tests she could not yet foresee, allies she could not yet identify, and dangers hidden both in plain sight and within the shadows of the spirits themselves. Yet, for the first time, she also felt a certainty she had never known. She would meet each challenge with heart, courage, and an unwavering determination to protect the village and honor the legacy of the baobab. The sun had climbed higher, yet the mangrove grove remained shrouded in a cool, shifting mist, the twisted roots casting elongated shadows across the water. Amina moved cautiously, clutching the glowing pouch of baobab seeds in one hand and the wooden figurine in the other. Every step felt charged with unseen energy, as though the grove itself was alive, watching her, testing her resolve. Jabari followed silently, his eyes scanning the shadows. Alert to any movement or disturbance, the ethereal child spirit floated beside her, casting a soft glow that illuminated the path ahead and highlighted the intricate carvings on the mangrove roots. The tension in the air was palpable, each ripple of water or rustle of leaves suggesting the presence of forces beyond human perception. As they ventured deeper, the river narrowed, forming a small pool surrounded by towering mangroves. The water was still, unnaturally so, reflecting the dense canopy above and the diffuse light filtering through the mist. Amina knelt beside the pool, noticing that the surface shimmered, faint images appearing as if embedded within the water itself. Faces of ancestors, guardians, and spirits flickered momentarily before dissolving into ripples. Her pulse quickened. This was a place the scroll had indicated, a convergence of the seen and unseen, a nexus where truths could be revealed and tests imposed. She took a deep breath, placing the amulet into the water. Immediately, the surface glowed brighter, casting moving light across the grove, and the air seemed to vibrate with energy. Then, without warning, a dark shadow erupted from the far side of the pool, taller and more solid than anything she had seen before. With eyes like burning embers and edges like smoke curling in the wind, it moved with deliberate menace toward her. Jabari stepped forward, hand raised as if to ward it off, but Amina felt the warmth of the baobab seeds pulsing stronger, urging her to act. She closed her eyes briefly, centering herself, and then spoke aloud, her voice steady and clear. "I am Amina. I stir the balance. You cannot harm me or the village." The shadow halted, its amber-like eyes fixed on her. The air grew thick, vibrating with an intensity that pressed against her chest. Yet the warmth from the pouch and the figurine radiated outward, forming a protective barrier around her. The ethereal child glowed brighter, circling her as if reinforcing the shield of energy. A deep, hollow voice echoed from the shadow, resonating across the pool. "The chosen stands. She holds the baobab's legacy for now. But power alone will not protect her. Will she understand the balance? Or will she falter?" Amina met its gaze, feeling fear rise and ebb in equal measure. "I will not falter," she declared. "I will learn, I will protect, and I will honor the baobab and the village." The shadow quivered, its form flickering like smoke in a sudden gust of wind. Slowly, it began to recede, its glowing eyes dimming. Though a low rumble of warning lingered in the mist, the path ahead is only beginning. The shadows that watch will not relent, and allies may hide intentions. The heart must guide, for courage alone is insufficient. As the shadow dissolved into the mist, the grove seemed to exhale, the stillness of the pool and the gentle rustle of leaves restoring a fragile calm. Amina lowered herself to her knees, heart pounding, hands still clutching the amulet and the pouch of baobab seeds. Jabari stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You have passed the first true test," he said quietly, "but the path will become more perilous. Secrets hidden in the village, shadows within the unseen world. You must remain vigilant. Trust is a fragile thing, and even those who seem allies may have hidden motives." Amina nodded, feeling both exhaustion and an unfamiliar surge of strength. She had faced the shadow, protected the balance, and understood more deeply the weight of her responsibility. The ethereal child hovered beside her, smiling faintly, its glow softening as if to offer comfort. "You have begun to understand, Amina," it whispered. "The village depends on your courage, your heart, and your clarity. Follow the scroll. Follow the whispers, and learn the secrets hidden in both the seen and unseen. The shadows will return, but now you know they can be met, faced, and held at bay." Amina exhaled, lifting her gaze to the dense canopy above. Sunlight filtered through, casting shifting patterns on the water and roots, and a calm determination filled her chest. She understood now that the trials would continue, each one more challenging than the last. Yet she was no longer just a girl chosen by the baobab, she was a guardian, a bridge between the village and the unseen world, prepared to face whatever awaited in the shadows beyond. The village lay quiet in the early morning, the golden sun filtering through the palm fronds and casting long, shifting shadows on the coral stone walls and sandy paths. Amina stepped lightly through the streets, the pouch of baobab seeds and the small wooden figurine secure against her chest. The events in the mangrove grove had left her both exhilarated and wary, her senses sharpened to the subtle signs of the unseen world. Each whisper of wind, each flicker of shadow, each distant ripple of water seemed charged with meaning, guiding her along a path she could scarcely yet understand. The villagers, busy with their early chores, cast curious glances toward her, sensing that she had changed in some fundamental way, though they could not articulate what. Amina's next destination, indicated by the scroll and the visions she had glimpsed in the baobab, was the old lighthouse perched at the edge of the coast. Long abandoned, with crumbling whitewashed walls streaked with salt and moss, it had once guided fishermen safely to shore, but now served as a landmark whispered about in tales of spirits and guardians. The scroll depicted a symbol resembling the lighthouse, intertwined with marks she had seen at the mangrove pool, suggesting that the answers she sought lay somewhere high above the village, where the land met the sea. She walked with purpose, adjusting her kitenge and feeling the warmth of the baobab seeds against her chest, their gentle pulse reminding her of the unseen forces watching over her. As she approached the lighthouse, the coastal wind picked up, carrying the briny scent of the ocean and the faint tang of seaweed. The waves crashed against the jagged rocks below, sending up sprays of foam that glistened like diamonds in the sunlight. Amina paused at the base of the crumbling structure, noticing the intricate carvings along the stone archway that matched the symbols on the scroll. She traced the patterns with her fingers, feeling a subtle vibration beneath her touch, as if the lighthouse itself recognized her presence. The ethereal child appeared silently beside her, its glow soft but steady, highlighting the carvings and casting faint light on the worn stone steps leading upward. "The path narrows," it whispered. "You will encounter choices today that will test not only your courage but your judgment. Listen closely, and the unseen will guide you." Amina stepped onto the first worn step, her bare feet brushing against the cold stone, feeling the texture of centuries beneath her toes with each upward step. The wind grew stronger, tugging at her kitenge and hair, and carrying with it whispers she could almost understand, voices of ancestors, guardians, and spirits entwined with the rhythm of the ocean. As she climbed higher, the glow from the baobab seeds pulsed brighter, responding to the energy of the place. At the top, the lighthouse platform opened to a panoramic view of the coastline. The village sprawled below, the mangrove grove visible in the distance, and the endless stretch of ocean meeting the sky at the horizon. The sight was breathtaking, yet the air was thick with an unspoken warning, a sense that something watched from beyond the ordinary world. Suddenly, movement flickered at the edge of the platform, a figure dressed in a dark dashiki, face partially obscured by a hood, standing silently against the wind. Amina's heart quickened, and the ethereal child hovered closer, its glow intensifying. The figure stepped forward, revealing sharp, intelligent eyes that regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Amina," the stranger said softly, voice carried by the wind, "you move with purpose. But the path you follow is dangerous. The shadows you faced in the mangrove were only the beginning. There are secrets here in the village, hidden for generations, and some will resist your knowledge, your presence." Amina nodded, clutching the pouch and figuring tightly. "I am ready," she said, though the tremor in her voice betrayed the tension coiling in her chest. "I will face whatever is necessary to protect the village and honor the baobab." The stranger inclined their head, a hint of respect in their eyes. "Then come," they said. "The answers you seek lie not only in what is seen, but in the hearts of those around you. Watch carefully, trust cautiously, and let the unseen guide your steps." Amina exhaled, feeling the weight of responsibility settling firmly on her shoulders. The wind tugged at her kitenge, the waves crashed against the rocks far below, and the ethereal child floated beside her, glowing softly in the morning light. She understood now that the journey was growing ever more complex. Shadows lingered, allies could conceal intentions, and the mysteries of the village intertwined with the unseen world more deeply than she had imagined. Yet, the pulse of the baobab seeds and the warmth of the wooden figurine reassured her. With steady steps, heart focused, and mind alert, she followed the stranger down a narrow path along the cliffside, toward the first of the hidden truths the scroll had promised to reveal. Ready to face the challenges awaiting her at the intersection of the seen and unseen worlds, the narrow path along the cliffside wound precariously between jagged rocks and the restless ocean below. Amina followed the hooded stranger, every step careful yet purposeful, the pouch of baobab seeds and the wooden figurine pressing gently against her chest. The wind tugged at her kitenge and hair, carrying the tang of salt and the faint cries of seabirds circling overhead. Her heart raced with anticipation and apprehension. The village below seemed peaceful, yet she knew appearances could be deceiving. The scroll had hinted at truths hidden in plain sight, and she had learned from the mangrove that even familiar places could harbor shadows. Each movement of the hooded figure ahead seemed deliberate, guiding her toward knowledge both ancient and fragile. They reached a small, hidden cove tucked into the cliffs, accessible only by a narrow trail over rocks and sand. The hooded stranger paused, lowering their hood to reveal a woman's face, lined yet strong, with eyes sharp and knowing. "I am Amina," said the girl instinctively, clutching her pouch. The woman nodded, a faint smile crossing her lips. "And I am Zuri," she said softly. "I have watched over the village's secrets for years, guarding what is known and unseen. You have been chosen by the baobab." "Yes, but the village has layers of history, of hidden truths, and not all who claim to protect it are sincere. Today, you will see one of these truths, and you must understand it fully if you are to proceed." Amina's pulse quickened, sensing the weight of the moment. Zuri led her to a concealed alcove behind a cluster of rocks where the waves crashed with muffled intensity. There, partially hidden beneath driftwood and sand, lay a weather chest, reinforced with iron bands and adorned with carvings she recognized from both the scroll and the mangrove figurine. The chest seemed ordinary at first glance, yet it radiated a subtle energy that tingled against her skin. Amina knelt, brushing sand from the carvings and tracing the lines with her fingers. The symbols shimmered faintly under her touch, responding to the energy of the baobab seeds. Zuri watched quietly, her expression unreadable. As Amina opened the chest to reveal its contents, a series of carefully preserved scrolls, maps, and small talismans, each imbued with traces of the village's long-forgotten history and secrets. As Amina examined the scrolls, a faint rustle came from behind the rocks. She froze, heart pounding, and instinctively held the figurine close. A figure stepped out of the shadows, a man she had seen briefly in the village market, dressed in a faded dashiki and carrying an air of secrecy. His eyes flicked toward the chest and then toward her. "I didn't expect anyone here," he said casually, though the tone carried a subtle edge, a warning wrapped in politeness. Amina felt a shiver of recognition. Mama Nia's warnings about hidden motives came rushing back. The stranger smiled faintly, but there was a glint in his eyes that betrayed ambition, curiosity, and perhaps malice. Zuri stepped slightly forward, her posture protective yet non-confrontational. "This knowledge is not for all," she said firmly. "It is for the chosen and for the village. Step carefully." The man's smile tightened and he raised one hand slightly as if testing her courage. Amina felt the pulse of the baobab seeds against her chest, warm and steady, a grounding force in the sudden tension. She held up the wooden figurine, and the glow from it extended outward in a soft shield, illuminating the space between her and the stranger. The ethereal child appeared as well, hovering above her shoulder, its presence strengthening the protective aura. "You will not take this," Amina said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. "The village has secrets, for its protection, and I will not allow harm to come from those who seek selfish gain." The stranger hesitated, sensing the unseen force surrounding her, and slowly backed away, eyes lingering on the scrolls and amulet. Zuri exhaled, a mixture of relief and gravity in her expression. "You see now," she said, "the shadows are not always in the mangrove or the forest. They can hide among those we trust or think we trust. Courage is essential, yes, but discernment is equally critical. The village is filled with whispers, choices, and intentions that are hidden beneath the ordinary. Your path will continue to challenge you, and you must remain vigilant. Every secret uncovered may bring clarity and danger." Amina nodded, absorbing the lesson. She had felt the pull of shadows before, but today's encounter had made the unseen threats tangible. Intertwined with the village and its history, with careful hands, she closed the chest, securing the scrolls and talismans, and felt the warmth of the baobab seeds pulsing in harmony with her resolve. The ocean breeze carried a sense of promise and warning, as she prepared to follow Zuri back toward the village, ready to face whatever lay hidden in both light and shadow. The sun had shifted higher, casting harsher light over the village, yet Amina's mind lingered on the encounter at the cliffside cove. The chest, the scrolls, the talismans, and the shadowy stranger weighed heavily on her thoughts. She followed Zuri through winding streets and narrow alleyways, the air thick with the scent of roasting cassava and fresh fish from the early market. Villagers glanced at her with curiosity and faint unease, as though sensing the change that had come over her since her journey into the mangrove grove. Amina's steps were steady, but her mind raced, replaying the warning from Zuri and the tension with the dashiki-clad man. She understood now that knowledge brought responsibility and risk. As they approached a secluded courtyard near the heart of the village, Zuri stopped and turned toward her, her gaze sharp. "The path forward is not simple," she said. "Every secret uncovered will have consequences. Today, you will see that the shadows are not only external, they can dwell within hearts, intentions, and even the bonds you thought were secure. You must act with caution." Amina nodded, gripping the glowing pouch of baobab seeds and the wooden figurine tightly. She felt the pulse of their energy flowing through her, steadying her resolve as she prepared to face whatever challenge lay ahead. From the alley to their left, a sudden movement drew her attention. Figures emerged, 3 villagers she had known from childhood, their faces familiar yet hardened by intent she had never anticipated. Their eyes flickered with suspicion and unease, and one of them, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward. "Amina," he said, voice low and cautious, "we know what you found, the scrolls, the chest. You shouldn't have touched them. There are things in this village that are hidden for good reason." The ethereal child hovered near her shoulder, its glow intensifying as if warning her of the danger. Amina's heart pounded, but she met the man's gaze calmly. "I seek only to protect the village," she said. "The baobab chose me to learn these truths. No harm will come under my watch." The tall man exchanged glances with the others, their murmurs carrying tension and mistrust. "Protection or power?" the scar-faced man asked sharply. "Knowledge is dangerous, and you have brought it into the open. There are forces at work that cannot be contained. Even the spirits can be swayed if intention is not pure." Amina felt a shiver run down her spine, but stood her ground. She lifted the wooden figurine, and the soft glow extended outward, forming a subtle shield between her and the villagers. The ethereal child's presence strengthened the aura, illuminating the courtyard with a faint, magical light. I am guided by the Baobab, by the unseen, and by my heart, she said firmly. I will not allow fear or selfishness to dictate my actions. We must act for the good of the village, not for hidden agendas or personal gain. For a tense moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the distant cries of seabirds and the rustle of palm leaves in the wind. Then the scar-faced man stepped back slightly, tension still evident in his posture. But a flicker of understanding crossed his eyes. Perhaps the child is chosen, he murmured. But know this, the balance is delicate. Every choice you make will ripple through the village and shadows will follow. Amina nodded, her pulse slowing as she felt the immediate threat recede. Though the warning remained vivid in her mind, Zuri placed a hand on her shoulder, guiding her gently toward the edge of the courtyard. You have faced your first internal challenge, she said. The unseen is one thing, but the hearts of those around you can be just as treacherous. Stay vigilant. The scrolls, the chest, and the amulets will guide you, but your judgment and courage must guide your actions. Amina exhaled deeply, feeling both relief and renewed determination. The encounter had reminded her that guardianship was not just about confronting shadows in the forest or spirits in the mangrove. It was about discerning truth, protecting the village, and navigating the delicate balance of human intentions. The sun reflected off the whitewashed walls of nearby houses, and a warm breeze carried the scent of blooming hibiscus. She knew that her journey was far from over. The village held more secrets, more challenges, and more lessons to be learned. With the pouch of baobab seeds glowing softly and the wooden figurine in her hands, she stepped forward into the next stage of her journey, prepared to meet the shadows, both seen and unseen, and to honor the calling that the baobab had entrusted to her. The courtyard had settled into a tense calm, but Amina felt the lingering weight of the villagers' suspicion pressing upon her. She glanced at Zuri, whose eyes carried both pride and caution, and the ethereal child hovered close, its glow steady, yet alert. The pouch of baobab seeds and the wooden figurine pulsed warmly in her hands, a tangible reminder of the unseen forces that supported her. Yet, she knew that the true test was not behind her. It awaited within the hidden chamber of the village, a place whispered about in tales and half-forgotten legends, said to hold the core of the village's ancestral secrets. Tonight, the scroll had hinted, would reveal the balance between the seen and unseen, between courage and wisdom, between trust and deception. Zuri led her through narrow streets, their footsteps quiet against the soft sand. Shadows stretched and shifted with the fading sunlight, painting the village in patterns that seemed to dance with intention. They arrived at a low stone building at the far edge of the village, partially concealed by palm trees and vines. Its walls were carved with symbols resembling those on the baobab seeds and the wooden figurine, and a faint glow emanated from within. Zuri paused at the entrance. Beyond this door lies the heart of our village's hidden knowledge, she said. You must enter alone. The unseen will test you. Remember, courage and wisdom must act together. Your heart must guide your steps, Amina. Amina nodded, swallowing the rising tension in her throat. She could feel the pull of the unseen, a subtle vibration in the air that hinted at challenges both spiritual and personal. Inside, the chamber was dimly lit by lanterns hung from wooden beams, casting a warm, flickering glow over walls covered with intricate carvings depicting generations of villagers, spirits, and ancestral guardians. In the center of the room lay a stone pedestal, upon which rested a carved wooden mask. Its features fierce yet enigmatic, the mask seemed to pulse with a subtle energy, as if breathing in rhythm with the heartbeats of all who had come before. Amina approached, feeling the warmth of the baobab seeds in her hand intensify, the figurine vibrating softly in resonance with the mask. She reached out, her fingers brushing the carved wood, and instantly the room shifted. Shadows stretched, twisting into forms that resembled both spirits and villagers, their eyes glowing faintly in the lantern light. Whispers filled the chamber, a chorus of voices both familiar and strange, speaking in languages she could almost understand, teasing her perception, testing her resolve. A sudden movement at the edge of her vision drew her attention. A dark figure cloaked in shadow emerged, its eyes glowing with a fiery intensity. It spoke, its voice deep and resonant, echoing in the chamber. You have come far, Amina. But knowledge comes with a price. Will you bear the weight of truth? Even when it challenges those you love, will you protect the unseen balance? Even when it demands sacrifice? Amina's pulse raced, but she lifted the wooden figurine, its glow brightening, forming a protective aura around her. The ethereal child hovered at her side, reinforcing the energy, and the baobab seeds pulsed in response, their warmth a guiding force. She took a deep breath, steadying her voice. I accept the responsibility. I will honor the baobab, Protect the village and uphold the balance, no matter the challenge. The shadow paused, its form flickering between menace and transparency, and the whispers in the chamber softened into a harmonious hum. Slowly, the shadow dissolved, revealing not a threat, but a vision, scenes of the village's history. Ancestors performing rituals to maintain harmony, moments of triumph and tragedy intertwined. Amina understood that the mask and the chamber were a repository of collective memory, a bridge between generations and the unseen forces protecting the village. She knelt before the pedestal, placing the baobab seeds and the wooden figurine together, and felt a surge of connection ripple through her, linking her to ancestors, guardians, spirits, and the very land itself. Zuri's voice echoed softly. Behind her, you have faced the challenge, embraced the knowledge, and emerged with courage and clarity. The village is safer because of you, and the balance endures. But remember, this is only the beginning. The unseen will continue to test those who serve, and your path is one of vigilance, wisdom, and heart. Amina exhaled, her chest heavy yet full, her eyes scanning the chamber's carvings and the glowing mask. She realized that guardianship was a continuous journey, a delicate interplay of trust, courage, and discernment. The village outside remained quiet, yet she knew that the trials would continue, that shadows both seen and unseen would seek to challenge her. But with the baobab seeds, the figurine, Zuri's guidance, and the ethereal child's presence, she felt prepared. As she stepped back toward the doorway, sunlight from the approaching evening streamed through, casting golden patterns across the chamber, illuminating her path forward. The unseen, the village, and the legacy of the baobab intertwined, and Amina knew she would face whatever came next with unwavering determination, heart, and clarity. The village had settled into the soft embrace of dawn, the horizon painted in muted oranges and pinks that reflected off the calm waters surrounding the settlement. Amina walked along the sandy paths, her kittenish fluttering in the gentle breeze, the glowing pouch of baobab seeds and wooden figurine held firmly in her hands. The events of the ancestral chamber still lingered in her mind, the mask, the visions of spirits, and the whispered lessons from Zuri. She understood now that her role as a guardian was growing heavier, and each step she took carried the weight of both her ancestors' trust and the unseen forces that watched her every movement. Her eyes scanned the village carefully, aware that subtle threats could emerge from the familiar faces of her neighbors. Zuri had advised her to begin the day with the elders, who held the oral histories and secret knowledge of the village. Amina made her way to the meeting hut, a circular structure with woven palm walls and a thatched roof, the interior adorned with carved wooden panels depicting generations of guardians and the spirits of the land. As she entered, the elders, 3 women and 2 men, their faces lined with time, eyes sharp and penetrating, greeted her with solemn nods. Amina, said Elder Nia, her voice steady and calm, you have learned much, yet the journey is far from complete. Shadows linger and not all threats are visible. Today, you must listen, observe, and prepare for challenges that will test both your heart and your mind. Amina bowed slightly, feeling the glow from the baobab seed's pulse reassuringly against her chest. The elders led her to a low stone table in the center of the hut, upon which lay an array of objects: a small bronze bell, a woven basket filled with dried herbs, and a map of the surrounding land and coast marked with faint symbols. These are guides, said Elder Kofi, pointing to each object. The bell alerts you to the presence of unseen forces, the herbs protect against malevolent spirits, and the map reveals paths that connect the village to both the land and the unseen world. You must use them wisely. Amina took each item in turn, feeling the subtle energy emanating from each. She placed the bronze bell in her satchel, the herbs carefully wrapped in cloth, and memorized the map's markings, understanding that the symbols represented both real locations and mystical junctures that required careful navigation. After a moment, Elder Asha leaned forward, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. There was news from the coastline, she said. Strangers have been seen near the northern cliffs, their intentions unknown. The mangrove grove has reported disturbances, ripples in the water, shadows moving against the wind, and unusual lights at night. You must investigate. The village depends on your courage and your insight. Do not act recklessly, for the balance is delicate. Amina's chest tightened with anticipation, but she nodded. She had faced shadows before in the mangrove, in the village courtyard, and within the ancestral chamber, and each time she had learned to trust both her heart and the guidance of the unseen. She took a deep breath, adjusted her kitenge, and secured the pouch of baobab seeds and a wooden figurine. I will go, she said firmly. I will discover the source of these disturbances and protect the village. Before leaving, the elders performed a small ritual, ringing the bronze bell, letting the aroma of the herbs fill the hut, and murmuring blessings in low, melodic voices. Amina felt a warmth spread through her chest as the pulse of the baobab seeds synchronized with the ritual, a bond forming between her, the guardians, and the unseen forces. Stepping out into the morning light, She saw the northern cliffs in the distance, jagged and imposing against the breaking waves. The path ahead would be challenging. She knew steep rocks, dense mangroves, and unseen forces ready to test her. Resolved, but she felt prepared. The ethereal child hovered beside her, its glow steady and reassuring, as if silently affirming that she was ready to face the unknown. As she began her journey toward the cliffs, the wind picked up, carrying the briny scent of the ocean in a faint, almost imperceptible whisper. It spoke of secrets, of guardians past and present, and of the delicate balance that connected the village, the unseen, and the world beyond. Amina's steps were deliberate, her eyes scanning the landscape, and her heart attuned to the subtle signals that might guide or warn her. Today, she would confront what had disturbed the northern cliffs, uncover new truths, and perhaps face shadows more cunning and determined than any she had encountered before. But with the baobab seeds, the wooden figurine, the guidance of Zuri, and the presence of the ethereal child, she knew she was not alone in that courage. Wisdom and clarity would continue to be her greatest allies. The path to the northern cliffs was narrow and treacherous, winding through jagged rocks and patches of dense vegetation. The salty breeze carried a mixture of the ocean scent, and the faint tang of wild herbs and the cries of seabirds echoed across the cliffs, adding a raw, wild energy to the morning. Amina moved carefully, her bare feet brushing against the coarse sand and stones, her eyes scanning for any subtle signs of movement. The pouch of baobab seeds pulsed softly against her chest, their warmth grounding her, while the wooden figurine vibrated faintly, as if responding to the unseen presence she could almost feel in the air. The ethereal child floated close, its glow casting a protective light along the path and alerting her to the occasional rustle of leaves that might conceal danger. As she reached the edge of the cliffs, the sight that greeted her was both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Waves crashed violently against the jagged rocks below, sending white spray high into the air between the rocks. Narrow channels of water glowed with an unnatural luminescence, shimmering in green and gold despite the morning sun. Amina's heart quickened. This was no ordinary tide or natural phenomenon. The scrolls and the ancestral teachings hinted at disturbances caused by spirits, and the glowing water confirmed that something unseen had shifted in the balance. She adjusted her grip on the baobab seeds and the figurine, feeling the pulse of energy thrum stronger, signaling the proximity of the source. Suddenly, movement appeared along the water's edge. Shadowy figures emerged, their forms partially transparent yet carrying the weight of solid presence. Their eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the luminescent water, and their gestures were deliberate, as if performing a ritual. Amina recognized the symbols they traced in the sand marks that matched those on the wooden mask. In the ancestral chamber, these spirits were not hostile, but they were disturbed, their purpose disrupted by unseen interference. She inhaled slowly, recalling Zuri's lessons to approach with caution, respect, and awareness of intention. Holding the figurine out before her, she stepped closer, letting the glow extend outward in a protective circle, the pulse of the baobab seeds harmonizing with the energy of the spirits. One of the figures, taller and more defined than the others, stepped forward. Its features were vaguely human, but shimmering with an ethereal light, and its voice resonated in Amina's mind rather than her ears. Child of the baobab, the balance has been disturbed. Those who seek knowledge without understanding have stirred what should remain hidden. You carry the guidance of your ancestors while you restore what has been disrupted. Amina's chest tightened and she knelt on the rocky shore, bowing her head in respect. I will, she said softly, her voice firm. I seek to protect the village, honor the unseen, and restore balance. Show me what must be done, and I will follow. The taller figure inclined its head and the other spirits gathered closer, forming a circle around her. The water between the rocks shimmered brighter, revealing a submerged chest similar in design to the one she had discovered in the cliffside cove, though older and encrusted with barnacles and coral. Amina understood instinctively. This chest held items that had been lost, drifting into the hands of those who had misused their power. She approached cautiously, extending the wooden figurine over the glowing water. The pulse of energy from the figurine seemed to merge with the spirit's aura, illuminating a safe path across the wet stones. With careful, deliberate steps, she reached the chest and opened it, revealing ancient scrolls, talismans, and small carvings of guardians and spirits. Each item radiated subtle energy, and the disturbance in the water gradually calmed, the glow softening to a steady shimmer. Amina lifted the items carefully, letting the pulse of the baobab seeds guide her hands. The spirits circled her, their forms now gentle and harmonious, and the taller figure spoke again. You have acted with respect, courage, and understanding. The balance is restored for now. Remember, child of the baobab, disturbances will always arise, and vigilance is your greatest tool. Share this knowledge wisely, for intention shapes both seen and unseen worlds. Amina nodded, her heart steady, and placed the recovered items into her satchel. The wind carried the scent of salt and flowers as she made her way back along the cliffs, the glow of the ethereal child lighting her path. She knew that the village awaited her return, but she also understood that each encounter with the unseen strengthened her connection, courage, and wisdom, preparing her for the next stage of her journey. The journey back from the northern cliffs was tense, each step along the narrow rocky path echoing against the waves below. Amina clutched the recovered scrolls and talismans close to her chest, the baobab seeds pulsing warmly as if urging her to remain alert. The wooden figurine's glow extended outward, casting a protective circle around her, and the ethereal child hovering by her side. Though the spirits of the cliffs had calmed, Amina knew that danger still lingered within the village itself. The dashiki-clad man she had encountered earlier, and perhaps others who sought power through the hidden knowledge, might try to intercept her and claim the artifacts for themselves. She inhaled deeply, steadying her heart and focused on the rhythm of her steps, each one deliberate and grounded as she approached the village outskirts. Movement among the trees caught her eye. Shadows shifted unnaturally, blending with the morning mist, and the sound of footsteps over loose sand confirmed her suspicion. She was being followed. The dashiki-clad man appeared first, flanked by two others she recognized from the courtyard, the same villagers who had confronted her weeks ago. Their expressions were tense, brows furrowed, eyes flicking toward the glowing pouch and figurine. "Amina," the man called, voice smooth but edged with warning, "You've meddled enough. The items you carry are not yours to wield. Hand them over, and no harm will come to you." Amina felt a surge of resolve. She had faced shadows before, both literal and figurative, and she understood that surrendering the artifacts would put the village and the balance at risk. "I cannot," she said firmly, holding the figurine before her. Its glow brightened, casting long, protective shadows that intertwined with the morning mist. The ethereal child hovered beside her, its presence amplifying the aura. "These items belong to the village and the unseen guardians. I am entrusted to protect them, and I will not let greed or fear disrupt the balance." The dashiki-clad man hesitated, his eyes narrowing as he assessed her resolve. The two villagers beside him shifted uneasily, sensing the unseen force emanating from the artifacts. Amina could feel the energy pulse, resonating with the baobab seeds and the figurine, forming a shield that stretched outward like a barrier between herself and the approaching threat. Suddenly, the taller shadow of a spirit emerged from the mist. Summoned by the energy of the artifacts, its form was imposing yet graceful, eyes glowing softly as it hovered between Amina and the intruders. "You threaten the balance." It spoke, voice deep and resonant, echoing across the cliffs and trees. "Those who seek power for selfish gain will be repelled. Child of the baobab, focus your heart and act with clarity." Amina's pulse quickened. She raised the figurine higher, and the glow intensified, forming a radiant barrier that forced the intruders to stop several feet away. The dashiki-clad man raised his hands in caution, a flicker of fear crossing his face as he sensed the power she now wielded. You cannot wield this," he said, voice strained. "It is too powerful." Amina's eyes were steady, her voice calm but firm. "It is not my power, it belongs to the village, the ancestors, and the unseen. You sought to disrupt it for your own gain, but that will not happen. Leave now, and I will not pursue retribution." The ethereal child floated closer, its glow enveloping the artifacts and radiating outward, amplifying the protective aura. Slowly, the intruders retreated, casting wary glances over their shoulders as they disappeared into the misty path behind them. Amina remained still for several moments, letting the tension drain from her body, her heart slowing as she felt the pulse of the baobab seeds synchronize with her own rhythm. With the immediate danger past, Amina continued her journey toward the village center. The morning sun now broke through the mist fully, casting golden light across the sandy paths and palm trees. Each step felt lighter. Though her awareness remained sharp, she knew the recovered scrolls, talismans, and carvings had been protected from those who sought them for selfish reasons, and she understood that vigilance would always be necessary. The elders would be waiting to guide her next. But Amina felt a new strength coursing through her, courage tempered by wisdom, insight reinforced by the unseen, and determination fueled by the trust of the village and the guidance of the baobab. The path ahead remained uncertain, but she felt prepared for whatever challenges awaited, knowing that the balance of the village depended on her heart, clarity, and courage. The village lay ahead, bathed in late morning sunlight, its circular huts and palm trees casting soft shadows on the sandy paths. Amina's pace slowed as she entered the central square, where the elders waited beneath the shade of a massive baobab tree, its gnarled trunk and sprawling branches providing a natural sanctuary. The scrolls, talismans, and carvings she had recovered were secure in her satchel, their subtle glow visible only to those attuned to the unseen. The ethereal child floated beside her, its light mingling with the warmth of the morning sun, creating a gentle halo that seemed to calm the village itself. Elder Nia stepped forward first, her eyes narrowing in a mixture of curiosity and expectation. "Amina," she said, her voice steady, "you have returned safely with the artifacts, and yet your journey is far from complete. The disturbances you confronted at the cliffs were not random. There are forces both seen and unseen that wish to test the strength of guardians and the balance of the village. You must now understand the deeper truth. The artifacts themselves are not the source of power. It is the intention and courage of those who protect them that maintains harmony." Amina nodded, her gaze fixed on the elders, absorbing their wisdom, while feeling the pulse of the baobab seeds against her chest. Before she could respond, the wooden figurine in her hands began to glow more brightly, pulsating in rhythm with the energy of the village. A soft hum filled the air, and the ground beneath the baobab tree shimmered faintly, revealing intricate carvings that had been hidden until now. The elders gasped, stepping back slightly as the carvings illuminated, depicting a story of ancient guardians, unseen spirits, and a cycle of protection that had endured for generations. The ethereal child's glow intensified, hovering above the illuminated carvings, and Amina realized that the village itself was alive with energy, connected to the unseen forces she had been learning to navigate. A sudden, powerful gust of wind swept through the square, carrying with it a flurry of leaves and petals from nearby hibiscus flowers. From the center of the illuminated carvings emerged a faint, shimmering figure, a spirit of the ancestors, its form both delicate and commanding. Eyes radiant with wisdom, child of the baobab, it spoke, voice melodic yet resonant. "You have faced shadows, protected the balance, and acted with courage. Yet the trials you have encountered are but a glimpse of what lies ahead. The guardianship is eternal, and the choices you make will shape the harmony between the seen and unseen. Remember this: power without understanding is chaos, knowledge without heart is dangerous." Amina fell to her knees, feeling the combined weight of responsibility, awe, and clarity. "I understand," she said softly. "I will honor the guidance of the baobab, protect the village, and maintain balance. I will act with courage, wisdom, and heart as the ancestors intend." The spirit inclined its head, a faint smile forming, and slowly dissolved into a cascade of golden light that spread across the square, mingling with the glow of the artifacts. The elders stepped closer, placing hands upon her shoulders, grounding her in the warmth and strength of the village community. The moment passed, and the village seemed to exhale, the energy settling into a harmonious rhythm. Amina rose, her chest still full with the pulse of the baobab seeds, the figurine's glow soft yet steady, and the ethereal child floating nearby. She knew that today had revealed not only the disturbances of the northern cliffs, but also a deeper truth. Guardianship was not merely about confronting external threats, but understanding the delicate balance of intention, courage, and heart. The village remained safe for now, yet Amina sensed that more challenges lay ahead, mysteries to uncover, shadows to confront, and lessons to learn. With a final glance at the elders and the baobab tree, she took a deep breath and prepared for the journey that would continue beyond this day. Confident in her ability to face the unknown with clarity and courage, the sun had barely risen above the horizon, casting a soft golden glow across the village and the surrounding palms. When Amina awoke to the rhythmic sound of drums echoing from the forest's edge, the ethereal child floated beside her, its glow faint yet steady, signaling that the day held significance beyond ordinary routine. The baobab seeds in her pouch pulsed softly, as if anticipating a journey, while the wooden figurine vibrated with subtle energy, connecting her to unseen forces that watched and guided her steps. She dressed quickly in her kitenge, its vibrant patterns catching the morning light, and secured her satchel containing the recovered artifacts. Today, the elders had said, would reveal a challenge unlike any she had faced, one that would test not only her courage and wisdom, but her understanding of the delicate balance between the seen and unseen worlds. The villagers were already gathering near the edge of the forest, their expressions tense with anticipation. Elder Kofi approached Amina, his hands clasped behind his back, eyes sharp yet filled with quiet reassurance. "Amina," he said, his voice steady, "the disturbance we sense beyond the village is intensifying. Shadows move among the trees, and whispers carry across the wind that suggest unseen forces are shifting. You must venture into the forest and investigate. The path will be difficult, the boundaries between the natural and supernatural thin, and the spirits will test your heart and resolve. But you are prepared to trust the baobab, the figurine, and your own courage." Amina nodded, feeling a surge of determination. She could sense the tension in the air, the subtle vibrations of the forest responding to the presence of the unseen, and she knew this journey would demand focus, intuition, and bravery. She stepped onto the narrow trail leading into the forest, the ethereal child hovering close, casting a soft glow that illuminated the twisted roots and thick undergrowth. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth, wildflowers, and the faint tang of salt from the nearby ocean. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, creating patterns of light and shadow that danced with every sway of the trees. Amina's pulse quickened as she sensed movement in the shadows, figures that appeared human at first glance, yet shimmered with an ethereal glow, almost as if they were spirits or illusions designed to test her perception. The baobab seeds pulsed warmly against her chest, a comforting rhythm that synchronized with her breathing, grounding her in the midst of uncertainty. Suddenly, a low hum began to resonate through the forest, subtle yet persistent, growing in intensity as Amina advanced. The wooden figurine vibrated in her hand, casting small sparks of light along the trail, and the ethereal child floated higher. Scanning the surroundings, the hum transformed into whispers, voices in multiple tones, speaking in languages both familiar and unknown. Testing her focus and resolve, she paused, closing her eyes briefly, centering herself, and letting the pulse of the baobab seeds guide her. "I am here to protect, not to disrupt," she whispered, and the whisper softened, almost as if acknowledging her intentions. Step by careful step, she moved deeper into the forest, aware that each motion, each breath, and each thought could influence the path ahead. After what felt like hours of navigating the thick underbrush, Amina reached a small clearing bathed in mist. In the center lay a natural spring, its waters glowing faintly with a luminescent blue hue, reflecting the soft morning light. The surrounding trees were twisted and ancient, their branches forming arches that seemed to embrace the clearing. As if guarding it, the ethereal child hovered over the water, its glow intensifying. While the baobab seeds pulsed in resonance with the energy of the spring, a sudden ripple disturbed the surface, and from the mist emerged a figure, a guardian spirit of the forest, its form tall and slender, with eyes that glimmered like polished amber, and hair that flowed like the mist itself. "Child of the baobab," it spoke, voice melodic yet commanding. "You have been chosen to confront a deeper imbalance. The waters of the spring have been tainted by greed and neglect. Will you act with wisdom, courage, and heart to restore what has been disrupted?" Amina stepped forward, the wooden figurine raised before her, its glow casting a protective circle around her and the ethereal child. "I will," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "I will restore the balance and protect both the seen and unseen worlds. Show me what must be done, and I will follow." The guardian spirit inclined its head, and the mist swirled around the clearing, forming patterns in the air, symbols and shapes that seemed both a puzzle and a guide. Amina realized that the challenge ahead would test her not only physically, but spiritually and mentally, demanding intuition, courage, and understanding of the unseen forces that connected the village, the forest, and the larger world beyond. Amina stepped cautiously into the misty clearing, her bare feet brushing against damp earth and moss, the faint glow from the spring illuminating the twisted roots around her. The ethereal child floated closer, casting its soft light over the pulsing surface of the water. The wooden figurine in her hand vibrated faintly, as though sensing the tension in the forest and the unrest within the spring. The baobab seeds against her chest pulsed warmly, steadying her heart as she inhaled the crisp scent of damp earth, wildflowers, and the subtle trace of minerals rising from the glowing waters. She knew this challenge required more than courage. It demanded focus, awareness, and understanding of the subtle forces that had been disrupted. The guardian spirit emerged fully from the mist, its tall, flowing form radiating authority and calm. Its amber eyes met hers, and a soft hum seemed to resonate from its very being. "The spring has been tainted," it said, voice melodic yet firm, "by greed, by neglect, and by forces that wish to disrupt the balance. The village, the unseen, and the forest are interconnected, and the harmony of one affects all. Child of the baobab, you must purify the waters, restore the energy, and seal the imbalance before it spreads." Amina nodded, understanding that this task would test every lesson she had learned: patience, courage, respect, and insight. She stepped closer to the spring, the figurine's glow reflecting in the luminescent water, while the ethereal child circled above, illuminating the surrounding mist and twisted trees. A sudden ripple surged across the surface of the spring, forming shapes that were vaguely human, yet distorted, as if the water itself had absorbed negative intentions. Amina recognized the danger immediately. The imbalance had formed sentient manifestations, shadows born from greed and carelessness. She held the figurine higher, its glow forming a protective sphere around her. The baobab seeds pulsed in tandem, sending warmth and energy throughout her body, aligning her intentions with the natural and supernatural forces at play. She knelt carefully at the edge of the spring, observing the shadowed figures as they writhed and moved, sensing their intention, but refusing to be overwhelmed by fear. "Calm," she whispered to herself, closing her eyes briefly, letting the rhythm of the baobab seeds synchronize with her breathing. She raised the figurine over the spring, letting its light extend across the water, connecting with the spirits of the forest and the ethereal child's glow. The shadowy figures hissed and recoiled, but did not disappear entirely. Amina understood. That force alone would not restore balance. She needed to act with clarity, intention, and respect. Recalling the elders' guidance and Zuri's teachings, she dipped her fingers carefully into the water, letting the glow from the figurine spread through her touch. Visualizing the spring returning to purity, its energy harmonized with the forest and the unseen guardians. The shadows writhed more violently, but Amina's focus did not waver. She began to chant softly, a melodic language passed down through the village's ancestral traditions, words resonating with the pulse of the baobab seeds and the energy of the figurine. The shadows faltered, their forms dissolving gradually into the luminescent water, leaving behind ripples of calm energy. The glow from the spring intensified, shifting from faint blue to a bright, serene turquoise, reflecting the morning sunlight that now filtered through the forest canopy. The guardian spirit hovered nearby, amber eyes shining, nodding in acknowledgement of her success. While the ethereal child's glow merged with the spring, amplifying the harmony restored, finally, the last of the shadow disturbances dissipated, leaving the clearing serene and balanced. Amina rose slowly, the figurine still glowing softly, and felt a deep sense of connection to the forest, the spring, and the unseen forces that guided and protected the village. The guardian spirit spoke once more, its voice calm and proud. Child of the baobab, today you have faced not only the imbalance, but the manifestations of greed and neglect. You have acted with courage, wisdom, and heart. Remember, the harmony of the village and the unseen is fragile. Vigilance, respect, and clarity must guide every choice you make. Amina bowed slightly, gratitude and determination shining in her eyes. The journey through the forest had revealed the delicate interconnection of all things, and she understood that her guardianship would demand constant awareness, courage, and balance. As she prepared to return to the village, the forest seemed to exhale, the mist dissipating slightly, revealing the intricate patterns of roots, foliage, and sunlight that had been hidden moments before. Amina's steps were steady and purposeful, the baobab seeds pulsing softly, the figurine's glow casting long, warm shadows. She knew the elders would want to hear of her success and guide her next steps. But she also understood that each encounter with the unseen strengthened her heart, sharpened her insight, and prepared her for challenges yet to come. The path back was no longer just a journey of return, it was a path of reflection, preparation, and readiness for the mysteries that lay ahead. The forest clearing seemed to breathe with a newfound calm, the turquoise glow of a spring reflecting off the twisted roots and misty air. Amina stood upright, her bare feet rooted to the soft earth, the wooden figurine still emitting a gentle, protective light. The ethereal child floated above her shoulder, its glow mingling with the luminescent water, offering comfort and guidance. Yet, despite the serenity, a sense of unease lingered, subtle but persistent. The guardian spirit's amber eyes, though calm, flickered with concern as it observed the surroundings. The spring is restored, it said, voice melodic yet tinged with warning. But beware, child of the baobab, restoration often attracts attention, and forces that linger in shadows may rise to challenge even the most prepared heart. Amina's instincts sharpened. She scanned the mist-shrouded forest, sensing a movement that was neither natural nor entirely spirit-like. From the dense underbrush emerged a figure, tall and imposing, cloaked in dark kente cloth patterned with jagged red and gold motifs that seemed to shimmer unnaturally in the light. Its face was hidden beneath a hood, but a pair of piercing golden eyes glowed from the shadows. The aura surrounding the figure radiated tension and subtle malevolence, and Amina felt a chill run down her spine. "Who are you?" she demanded, keeping her voice steady, her hand gripping the figurine tightly. "Why have you come to the forest spring?" The figure stepped forward with deliberate, silent grace. "I am Mosi," it said, voice low and commanding, keeper of knowledge long hidden, and seeker of power beyond mortal bounds. "The spring calls to me, as do the artifacts you now carry. You have interfered in matters that surpass your villages. Understanding, step aside, child, or face consequences beyond your comprehension." Amina's pulse quickened, but she did not step back. The glow from the figurine extended outward, casting a protective barrier around her and the ethereal child. "I cannot step aside," she said firmly. "The spring, the artifacts, and the balance of the village are entrusted to me. I will not allow selfish desire to disrupt what has been restored." Mosi's eyes narrowed and the air around the clearing thickened with tension. Shadows lengthened, twisting unnaturally among the trees, and a low hum filled the air, vibrating through Amina's chest and echoing the pulse of the baobab seeds. "Very well," Mosi said, his voice edged with authority. "Then you will face a test of your guardianship, a trial that will stretch your courage, wisdom, and heart. Only if you succeed will the forest recognize your role, and the balance remain intact." Amina's fingers tightened around the figurine, and she could feel the ethereal child's energy amplify, radiating calm determination. "I am ready," she replied, voice unwavering, "Show me the trail, and I will meet it with clarity and courage." Suddenly, the mist thickened, enveloping the clearing in a swirling, almost tangible fog. The ground beneath her feet shifted, roots twisting into intricate patterns that formed a labyrinth around the spring. Shadowed figures began to emerge from the mist, reflections of her own doubts and fears, each one a distorted version of herself, or a villager she loved. They whispered accusations, taunts, and doubts. Testing her focus and resolve, Amina's breath quickened, but she closed her eyes briefly. Centering herself with the pulse of the baobab seeds, she whispered to the figurine and the ethereal child, "I will act with heart, courage, and clarity. I will not falter." With that intention, the glowing light from the figurine expanded, illuminating the labyrinth and dissolving the shadowed figures as she stepped forward with deliberate, calm movements. Each step required focus and intuition, as some paws twisted deceptively, while others seemed to beckon with false ease. The ethereal child floated ahead, guiding her and amplifying her connection to the forest's energy. Mosi watched silently from the shadows, his golden eyes assessing her every move. Finally, after navigating the labyrinth with careful precision and unwavering focus, Amina reached the center once more. The spring calm and luminous, and the shadows dissolved completely. The forest seemed to sigh in relief, mist lifting, revealing the intricate beauty of roots, ferns, and sunlight that filtered through the canopy. Mosi stepped forward, removing his hood, revealing a face weathered yet wise, eyes glimmering with respect. "You have succeeded where many would have faltered," he said quietly. "Your courage, focus, and understanding of intention have proven that guardianship is not merely about wielding power. It is about heart, clarity, and respect for balance. The village and the forest are fortunate to have you as their protector." Amina exhaled, relief and pride mingling with exhaustion. She lowered the figurine slightly, feeling the pulse of the baobab seeds slow to a gentle rhythm, and the ethereal child hovered nearby, its glow soft yet reassuring. Today, she had faced not only imbalance, but an adversary who challenged her perception, courage, and heart, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready for the next stage of her journey. The forest clearing, now bathed in a mixture of mist and warm sunlight, seemed almost to breathe in harmony with Amina's pulse. The labyrinth of twisted roots and shadowed illusions had dissolved entirely, leaving only the calm, turquoise glow of the spring reflecting in the serene morning light. Mosi stood a few steps away, the dark kente cloth flowing gently in the breeze. His golden eyes softened with respect. The ethereal child hovered beside Amina, its glow steady and comforting, while the wooden figurine in her hand pulsed with a quiet, protective energy. For a moment, the clearing was still, as if holding its breath, witnessing the culmination of courage, clarity, and heart. "You have done well, child of the baobab," Mosi said quietly, his voice reverberating through the clearing. "You have proven that guardianship is not measured by strength alone, but by understanding, intention, and the willingness to face the unseen with a pure heart. The forest and the spring are now restored and the balance maintained. Your village will thrive, guided by your vigilance and respect for the unseen forces that shape our world." Amina exhaled, relief mingling with a deep sense of accomplishment. She lowered the figurine, letting its glow blend seamlessly with the turquoise light of the spring. The pulse of the baobab seed softened, a gentle rhythm echoing the restored harmony of the forest. As she stood, the mist around the clearing shifted, revealing subtle symbols and patterns etched into the roots and ground. Glowing faintly in the sunlight, the symbols told a story of guardians before her, of trials faced and wisdom earned, connecting Amina to a lineage of protectors who had balanced the seen and unseen for generations. She reached out to touch the glowing patterns, feeling warmth and reassurance flow through her fingers, a silent affirmation of her role and responsibility. The ethereal child floated closer, brushing its faint glow against her cheek as if offering encouragement and solidarity. Amina realized that this journey had strengthened her not only in skill and courage, but in understanding the interconnectedness of all things: the village, the forest, the spirits, and herself. Mosi stepped forward, placing a hand on Amina's shoulder, a gesture of both respect and guidance. "The artifacts you carry, the baobab seeds and the figurine, are tools, not sources of power. True guardianship flows from your heart, clarity, and courage. The challenges you face will continue, for balance is ever delicate and forces will always test it. Remember this, and you will succeed." Amina nodded, her eyes bright with renewed determination, understanding the weight of responsibility but also the strength within her to face whatever came next. The ethereal child hovered higher, its light merging with the morning sun's rays, creating a radiant halo over the spring and the forest, signaling completion and protection. As Amina prepared to leave the clearing and return to her village, the forest seemed to shimmer with renewed vitality. Birds called softly, leaves rustled gently in the breeze, and the turquoise glow of a spring reflected an unbroken harmony. The path back was no longer daunting. Each step felt deliberate, steady, and purposeful. Guided by the knowledge she had gained and the trials she had endured, Mosi watched silently, then slowly faded into the mist, leaving Amina with the quiet reassurance that the forest and the spring were safe for now. She glanced at the artifacts, the ethereal child, and the baobab seeds, sensing that her guardianship was only beginning, and that the lessons of courage, intention, and balance would guide her in the adventures yet to come. Returning to the village, Amina was met with expressions of awe and respect from the elders and villagers. The turquoise glow of the spring seemed to extend outward, a subtle reflection in their eyes as they realized the restoration and protection that had taken place. Amina smiled faintly, her heart steady, understanding that each step of her journey from the cliffs to the forest spring had prepared her for the ongoing responsibility of guardianship. The day had tested her in ways she had never imagined, but it had also strengthened her connection to the unseen, the forest, and the village she vowed to protect. With the morning sun fully breaking through the mist and illuminating the village, Amina knew that the path ahead would hold new challenges, mysteries, and lessons, but she was ready, guided by courage, heart, and the eternal pulse of the baobab.